And thanks for recognizing all the crew here and all across the state of California as we update you, as we have done pretty consistently over the course of the last few months in Colfax just a few weeks ago and here again today on our preparedness for wildfires. Not wildfire seasons. Seasons are no longer apt as it relates to California's realities. They're year-round, but the peak of wildfire season, which we are about to experience. To highlight that, to contextualize this day, in the last 24 hours, we had 3,600 lightning strikes throughout the state of California, initiating about 30 larger fires, 25, interestingly, on federal land, which represents, unsurprisingly, 57% of all of our forested land. California, only 3%. But 25 of those 30 fires were initiated because of lightning strikes. Tens of thousands of lightning strikes over the course of the last many weeks have occurred in Northern California. And so this is the time where we are particularly focused and energized, and we are now more committed to pre-positioning, protecting, and continuing to prevent, to the extent possible, the impacts of Mother Nature. Accordingly, one of the things that we're most proud of in the state is people like Chris, those that have sacrificed and served the people of this state by being part of the world's largest civilian aerial firefighting fleet. There's simply no jurisdiction in the world that has more assets at bear, more aerial assets than the state of California. We've made bold commitments over the course of the last many, many years, and we're delivering on those commitments. And that's the purpose of today, getting these final two Firehawks, 16 total, now into our possession, fulfilling the commitment that was imagined about 2 decades ago. Quite literally, around 2004, there was a report that came out, talked about the imperative of investing in technology that wasn't designed like the Hueys in the 1950s. They're iconic in terms of their use and utilization in Vietnam, and to invest in state-of-the-art technology. Joe Tyler underscored the impact of that imperative, impact of those investments. The Mandeville Canyon, the first spot fires that occurred would have devastated. The fires, as devastating as they were in Southern California and LA, in and around the Pasadena burn scars and, of course, Palisades, would have been significantly worse had it not been for the investments that we saw firsthand in real time, these Firehawks at night doing nighttime suppression. I think at peak, there was about 8 of these Hawks out doing rings and circles to suppress the impacts of those spot fires. So one cannot understate the importance of these investments. One cannot understate the importance of what Chris and Joe and others said, Tina, about all the work that's done that you don't see. I say it over and over again, and I'll continue to say it over and over again. These guys don't, unlike baseball players, get enough credit for saves. And one of the things I'm most proud of year to date are the things that I'm briefed on every single day that folks don't know about because of the incredible work of the men and women at CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, and our local firefighting personnel. And so we're here as well in that spirit, Chris's spirit, to thank them for their service and their contribution. Just briefly, because we talked a lot about this in Colfax, our efforts continue at historic pace to address the issue of vegetation management and forest management. We had announced a few months back a new emergency proclamation to fast-track projects that were falling through the cracks under our larger programmatic EIR, which is the Cal VTP, a 20 million acre programmatic EIR. Under the emergency proclamation, now over 50 projects have been complete, over 12,000 critical acres have been treated. This builds on our historic amount of acreage treated in this state, supported by 10x the amount of investments that we have seen in prior administrations. That's just a reflection of our commitment to not just prepare for wildfire season and suppression mindset, but also prevent wildfires as well. It would be wrong, in the spirit of what Tina just said, not to also acknowledge partnerships that I think have proven potent. One in particular, the Orleans complex in Northern California around Klamath, which is a federal fire that got a lot of attention. But what didn't get enough attention was the incredible contributions of the local tribes, particularly Karuk, tribe, and some of the contributions they made in partnership with the state and federal authorities as it relates to tribal burning practices and how essential they have become in terms of the mitigations and impacts on these larger complexes. So I also want to acknowledge those partnerships. They've often been talked about, but we really saw results, particularly in the Orleans complex. We also had some big fires up there, as you may have written about or talked about, as it relates to fires around Shasta, the Green Fire as well. But look, we're just trying to make sure these are not headlines, doing our best to continue to mitigate the impacts of these fires and these early strikes, keep them under 10 acres, which is our goal to the extent possible, and continue to address the reality, and it's a reality, of all of the headwinds in Washington, D.C. I think it's important that folks know this. I think more people should know this, in that H.R. 1, the President of the United States referred to as a big, beautiful bill, or a big, beautiful, well, was a bill, to the next generation, $3.3 to $4 trillion of debt. But in that betrayal, in that bill, was also a reduction of $450 million. Clearly the White House was tuning in. A reduction of $450 million of grants for vegetation and forest management. So when we get lectured, when you write the headline after the next fire, and we hear from the president talking about raking the forest, which he quite literally means, literally believes that we should be raking the forest. I'll remind you, we've never received a rake, and all we received this year were cuts of $450 million nationwide to aid and advance those efforts. Cuts to the U.S. Forest Service, 10% cuts in frontline employees, 25% cuts to people supporting the administration and work done by our brave men and women at the U.S. Forest Service, cuts to our regional Forest Service offices. Remember this the next time he tweets something out. Please tell the story of the fact that he has reduced the number of Forest Service offices. Region 5, he's shutting down the office in California, the largest state in the union. More forested property here than any other state. He's shutting down the office in Vallejo, California, and he's moving that regional office to Salt Lake City. Cutting the U.S. Forest Service, cutting critical offices, cutting prediction analysis and weather and technology support, cutting forest and vegetation management, all the while lecturing states like California to do more, and it's exactly what we continue to do. In the absence of federal leadership and responsibility, we are stepping in to that void. The largest aerial firefighting fleet in the world, the most robust investments in California history, almost doubling the CAL FIRE investment. And despite some budgetary challenges, maintaining those commitments, resolved to keep people safe and protected in the state, and have the backs of people like Chris to continue to support the folks in the background here today in our 10 heli-attack bases all across the state. Final 3 words. We're keeping the old Hueys, at least 6 of them. We had 12. We're sending another 6 back to the U.S. Forest Service. We'll keep those 6 Hueys to do something that we're also doing more of. We're going to have a program, you may have already heard of it, that will be enhanced because we'll use these Hueys for our helitorch efforts, which are prescribed burns, which continue to also increase in California. It's not just traditional vegetation and forest management, defensible spaces, it's also a prescribed burn program that has significantly been improved because of the fast-tracking legislation, because of the investments the legislature has supported as well. So doing all we can to meet these challenges head on. and all we can to keep people safe as we move to the peak of wildfire season here in the state. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. Hopefully